Oh, wow.
So my friend had escaped from a snake handling church and come out from West Virginia, and they were trying to retrieve him. So he asked me to go to a tent meeting with them.
Wow.
And one night we went way out in the middle of nowhere, and they had it was private property, and it was like Int Base, but worse, scarier, more terrifying because you had people guarding it with guns.
Yeah.
Like back when you couldn't own, anyway, M16s.
Yeah.
And these guys,
AR base.
this was literally an open tent, big. They had the side flaps pulled up. They had put folding chairs in sawdust, so that when during revival came, you could walk the sawdust trail to glory. And it was all the same people. A lot of them didn't have teeth, and some of them were drunk, and they were having glory spells. And I had long hair in high school as a Jesus person. Did live through Calvary Chapel and it was the whole thing. It was pretty amazing. Glad I got to experience that. But these guys were scary, and one of them, I thought they were going to take me out because they wanted to retrieve their boy back to West Virginia because he'd gotten into the big city. And that was one of the few times I was actually in fear of my life that they were going to kill me because they thought I had got sent in. I was like 16.
Yeah.
But they thought I was working for the feds or something. I was spying on them. Now, they had a box. They didn't have any snakes out, but they had a box out back of the tent with air holes in it. I knew they had snakes in there.
Oh, yeah.
So long story short, they let me leave with my friend because he said he didn't want to come back, and they escorted us off the property, and it was scary. And I think after we left, the snakes came out, and man, they're scary people. You can make fun of them, but when you get around live snakes, and you're an expert in herpetology, that's the word, right? Yep, you're an expert. When people are handling snakes, they are not screwing around. They're deadly serious, and they believe but by a snake, they'll either have faith to heal or God will take them home. But to me, they were terrifying to be around. And why they had a camp up in San Gabriel Mountains, they were up to something. They needed a place up in the mountains, and I don't know what the hell that was about.
I'm gonna show you a video here. I saw this one. It's older than it says on the link from it, and this is from RBI Snake Wrangler, but a herpetologist who does rescues for in like the Appalachian area came across this guy who was giving up his pet rattlesnakes. Wow. I have never seen timber rattlesnakes be handled this way.
And,
oh, wow.
So how long have you had these? You didn't just catch these snakes today. You've had these snakes for how long?
About 15 years.
About 15 years.
It was an accident. I found them, took them home to show a friend. 15 years later, here we are. Just happened to just couldn't.
Yes. Yeah, that iridescent color. Wow, that thing is just gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous rattlesnakes.
I mean, this guy is literally handling very, very dangerous snakes. Look at this. He's trying to make it, making it rattle by annoying.
Oh,
look at that one. This actually was coming up towards his neck.
They like to be scratched behind the ears. Well, they don't have
ears,
but they like that.
Where their ears would be.
Yeah.
Look at this. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Paul, can I jump on?
I'm assuming you hear all the time people tell you you're crazy. People say that all the time. Yeah.
Well, when this gets done, I'll tell you a story.
I don't even do what you're doing.
Yeah, this is insanity.
You can open up this.
Look at this. He's actually opening his snake's mouth. It doesn't even let his fangs come down. Look at that.
I've never seen anyone French kiss a rattlesnake until now.
Okay. Paul, I'll give you a couple secrets I learned from my friend who came out of snake handling church, A couple things you can do. One, the day before the snake handling service, you throw them in the freezer. And first you feed them a lot.
Mhm.
You feed them,
Oh,
throw them
yeah.
in the freezer, and they get real cold. You don't freeze them solid, but you got it like at maybe 42, 38, or
Yeah,
above
you're gonna
freezing.
try to send them into early, hibernation.
Yeah, and so the snakes are very lethargic.
Right.
And this guy told me that's what his pastor did is he put the snakes so that they're semi hibernated. They're very lethargic. He also used a drug, a tranquilizer on them,
No, I wouldn't be
and
surprised by that.
well, it interferes with their vision and their sense of heat. You know how they sense?
Mhm.
They have some kind of sensors. But he gave them a homebrewed drug that would make them very lethargic.
Yeah.
And so some of the people who had true faith, they would just have room temperature alive snakes, but they would always feed them. And sometimes they would give them a little pill or something, and I don't know what it was, but it screwed with their vision and it made them hard to strike, like they'd see double.
Mhm.
So even some of these snake handlers had some tricks of the trade.
Yeah,
Well, my friend told me.
there are people that do those things. That's not not an uncommon thing. You see it, especially like if you go over to India and you see the people who are doing like the snake charming over there with the cobras and everything.
Yeah.
A really common thing that they do over there is they will remove the fangs from the snake's mouth, or
Wow.
they'll sew the snake's mouth shut.
Now, is it true that you can put super glue into a snake's fangs and they can't get out venom? I'd heard that too.
Problem is, well, you could, yeah, if you could get in there to get the super glue on the fangs. But
Yeah.
the real problem with it is snakes shed their fangs just like alligators shed their teeth. And
didn't
it's
know
like, so as you can look in the mouth of a snake, of a venomous snake, and sometimes you'll see two fangs in the same spot. And that's
Oh.
because one of them is getting ready to be shed, and the other one's the new one taking its place. So you could put the super glue in there, but that doesn't guarantee anything's going to happen.
Oh, because they shed it. But
Yeah.
if it hardened, just for one night's performance,
Right.
it would
Oh, yeah.
tend to, like, if they didn't have, assuming what's
But you're also taking the chance of, if when that snake does bite,
yeah.
of just the sheer force of it breaking the skin, and then the venom pressure on the other side busting that
Yeah.
super
Cap,
glue
yeah.
loose, you could
Yeah.
actually end up it be envenomated. I was talking with Jim Harrison. He's a world leading expert on venomous snakes. He runs the Kentucky Reptile Zoo down in Slade, Kentucky. The guy is, I mean, he's been on Animal Planet, National Geographic, all the big channels, and he's literally as considered one of the biggest experts in the world when it comes to them. He and I were talking about venomoid snakes, where they remove the venom glands from the snakes and replace them. Sometimes they don't even replace them with anything. You just have snakes that have these hollowed out sides of their heads.
Yeah.
And he was showing me a cobra that someone had had the venom, what they call it, the venomoid surgery done to it. And literally he took the snake over, put it up to the milking tray, put it on there, and it was actually producing liquid that they tested and showed that it was actual venom. The snake, even though it didn't have venom glands, was regrowing its own venom glands and was producing venom again. And
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing, is these are the real, these folks think they've got everything figured out. That's why you hear about these snake handling preachers and things like that getting envenomated and ending up dying or losing an arm or something like that, because they think they've got it all figured out, and then they turn around and they had the snake in the freezer for an hour or two, got it to where it's almost dormant, but then they bring it into church where it's 100 degrees inside the building, and the snake warms up while they're there. And
yes, that's a good point. Some of those churches, are pretty small, and then also you in Pentecostalism, there's like a group in these kind of snake handling churches. There's kind of a group frenzy.
Yeah.
And they play off each other where they want to get more bold and more bold and more bold.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple videos on YouTube you can watch. One of them, a guy gets bit right in the neck.
Yeah. That's one of the that one's been real popular. I'm not going to show any of that because people are freaking out enough about just me showing like the snake handling itself. But I'm just trying to show the reality of the world in this. You know, there are people who should not be in any way in a leadership position that are out there doing these kinds of things and putting not only their life but the lives of others at risk because of what they're doing. You
Oh
know,
yeah, very dangerous leaders. Once you become radicalized,
yeah,
I mean, this is why in the Middle East you have older radicals sending in literally very young men with explosives strapped to them.
hmm
You know, because of the radicalization process, it's a spectrum. It can begin with, like, in my world of going after say embezzlers or white collar criminals.
right.
It begins with stealing a little bit. So things sometimes are gradual. Sometimes things are rash. I think when the older guys, pastors, because it's a male dominated culture with snake handlers, but the women handle snakes as well.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah,
why you talk about putting kids around it, and there's kind of an age, it's informally, that you don't get to handle snakes till you are come up to a certain age, and it varies. But I've never seen it, and I could be wrong, other meat people, but I've never seen the snake handler cults allow children to handle snakes. I think you got to be 15,
I've seen it.
16. Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. They because they believe the children are basically like the without first sin. So they think that the children are extra protected. I mean, and
Yeah.
folks, if you don't know my history, I've been in herpetology, the study of reptiles, since I was a teenager, literally before I was a teenager. This photo here is of me I was doing a training session for animal control and federal agencies that deal with reptiles on the captive care husbandry, how to capture them, how to properly handle them. That is about a 4.5-foot American alligator that I was working with there. You know, I've been on Animal Planet, been on Nat Geo. So I've been, you know, at one point I was actually an internationally recognized expert on reptiles, especially venomous snakes and crocodilians. You know, I know my stuff. I've been around it a long time. I've studied a lot of them and handled pretty much every species of venomous snake that there is. I just, you know, I mean, it's just one of those passions that I have.
Yeah, I have a little bit of herpetology. Can you take a look at it? No, no. What I did is, when I was in lighting, and part of my lighting, because lighting takes you everywhere. Part of my portfolio was selling UV lights to a very famous company. You'd know the name. I'm not going to say it, but there's over 1 million iguanas a year imported into the U.S.
Oh yeah,
And the leading cause of death in iguanas and other lizards that were eaten in a terrarium is a lack of UV light, which metabolizes vitamin D.
absolutely.
And so bone fractures are the leading cause of death if you don't give them enough UV, because you can put an iguana on a heat stone all day long, electrical heat stone. The guy who invented that took a waterbed heater and mixed up some plaster and made it brown like a rock and put the waterbed heater in it. And he made a fortune. He was 17 years old, and he created a very famous company.
I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about.
Initials ZM. And he invented this thing, and then he got into supplements. But to prevent bone breakages, we optimized the lighting source. When I was at Phillips, working with a famous zoologist, they would give them the exact amount of dose, because depending on size and weight, you have to give them a lot of UV stuff that would really kill or injure us, because they need to soak it in.
Right.
So I sort of had reptiles as part of my portfolio, and to me, I've never had any interest in them other than lighting them.
Right.
But I've been hiking. I was in the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and when you hear that electric rattle of a rattler snake, we always the scout leaders, they always had guns with snake shot in it, and we were learned that sound, that electric buzzing sound.
Oh yeah.
Of a rattler. So that's what, when you grow up in California, especially when you go out in the desert a lot, like I have been out to Joshua Tree since forever. My dad loved it. And you learn that unmistakable buzzing, that electric like sound of a rattler. It's scary. So usually if you leave them alone, don't reach your hand into strange places. But that
Yeah.
picture, you with the alligator, like what got you interested? Did you just grow up with an interest in it, or were you raised as a witch?
You grow up around them, and
Okay.
it becomes
Yeah.
something. For me, it's never been a part of the, a lot of people do it as like those what do you call it, as like one of those macho things, kind of look at me.
Yeah.
It was never like that for me.
Yeah.
It was always more, my stuff was more about the I just see a beauty in them, that
Yeah, I
there
can understand
here's
that.
a creature, like especially with the alligators, they've been around since the dinosaur time.
True. Yeah.
And they're pretty much unchanged. The only real changes are in the size of them. And so that's been, my thing is it's always been not just about, knowing the different species and things like that. It's knowing about their temperament, their dichotomy, their biology, all the different things that go into them, the toxicity of their venom. And so it's just been fascinating to me. I absolutely love them. And here's what you were talking about. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been there before.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize that that sound is a people think like the baby rattles, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. They don't realize that the actual sound of a rattlesnake is more like a buzz kind of sound.
Yeah, like an electric buzz. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unmistakable, and it means you better pay attention.
Yeah.
So we'd glad you played that. And so anyway, iguanas and things. It's interesting because there are so many hobbyists now. Poisonous snakes. There's a Bible verse that says, and this is in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 16, the last half, and that it says you can take up serpents and they will not harm you. And that last half of Mark 16 proved to be spurious. So the newer editions of the Bible take out the last half of Mark 16 because it was a later addition to the body of Scripture. So it's spurious. It's spurious. It wasn't part of the earliest manuscripts. It was added later. And I learned that in college, studying theology. And so you try to explain that to snake handlers. When you're dealing with faith, people think they're invincible if they have faith in God and they ignore the naturalistic world. And so one of the counters to that idea is, well, if you jump off a skyscraper, gravity is going to get you. And all the faith in God's not going to stop, your acceleration to terminal velocity. And then, like they say, it's not the fall, it's, the impact. So, and there's also a verse in the Bible that says that thou shalt not tempt God.
Absolutely.
And the snake handlers, in my view, and, speaking as a spiritual person, they are tempting God. They're and that daring God, and that whole idea that God will protect you from your own idiocy, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Idiocy, a lot of the things that we don't know, our own ignorance can harm us. Now, our own ignorance is one thing, but deliberately a sin against knowledge, that is taking up a poisonous reptile.
Well, I think it comes down to the old saying, you can't fix stupid.
It's irreparable, sir.
Yeah. And just like with what I was talking about with some of these folks who are law enforcement officers that never should have had the badge in the first place, it's ego as well. I talk about the fact that I had, there was one time I got called out because someone said they saw either a lion or a tiger in the city that I worked in. You got to remember, this is a very urban area. That the area where they saw it was one of the only places where you had natural growth of things. It was an industrial area that had shut down. We got out there and literally we found a paw print that big, a feline paw print.
Yeah.
And we started freaking out. Well, the next day they found a tiger that a guy had actually unalived right across the river from where we were at. That tiger had ran across the railroad bridge into that neighborhood, and a guy unalived it because he thought it was going to come after his children.
Yeah.
And what it was someone's pet that had gotten too big and they let it go.
Wow.
Oh man, that's a sad story. Here that's sad for the tiger, and Here
Yeah.
in Los Feliz, there was a mountain lion that ran the Santa Monica Mountains from Griffith Park Observatory, where Karen and I live, up into Santa Monica, and it would go under the freeway, and it had a numerical name like K12 or something, but it got here in Los Feliz like a block over, and it went under a house.
Yeah.
So imagine LAPD got called. They don't know what the hell to do. So they come armed and ready to have to, if they have to put down the animal, because you have an actual mountain lion, wild, under a house. Now this big cat eluded the cops. They had the helicopters out with the infrared sensors.
Well, that'll give you an idea just how agile they are. They
they had animal control out with tranquilizer guns. They had cops with their automatic weapons. I mean, they want to protect the public, but this thing got away. It was so elusive. It got away from infrared sensors, and who knows where it went. But
let me give you an idea about just how stealthy animals are. I was in Thailand in a national park. We've been riding motorcycles, and we went through a national park, and it's extremely hot there. So we stopped, found some shade. We're having some cold water, just drinking the water, and the guy that I was out, he was sitting on his bike. I was sitting on the one I had rented, and I look at him, and he's like, his eyes are as big as saucers, and he's looking directly past me. And I turn and look because I heard a noise, and there was a herd of wild elephants were crossing the road behind us.
Wow.
Now you got to remember, this is some of the thickest bush you've ever seen. I mean, this is kind of bush that rivals Amazonian river basin bush. It's just insanely thick. But here you have these animals 9 foot tall, thousands of pounds in weight, literally walked through the forest, the jungle, and we didn't hear them. It wasn't until they started crossing the road that suddenly we realized they were there. That's scary.
That's really scary. Yeah.
If you have an animal that size that can do that kind of stuff, it's not uncommon that a mountain lion would be able to outpace them.
Sure.
And they wouldn't be able, because they're used to chasing people.
Yeah.
And now you're taking an animal that runs more than double the speed of a human being, and it's able to turn on a dime. It's able to go up trees. It's able to go underneath things that you normally wouldn't see with people. It's not unusual that they wouldn't be able to trace it like that.
And unlike humans, when you get called out, police set up a perimeter, and police are very good at setting up perimeters when you have a suspect in a known area, and you have helicopters. We had a guy break into a house, alarm went off, police came, he ran into the backyard. So the LAPD is a highly mobile, what they're very good at, LAPD is a highly mobile strike force. LAPD can bring a lot of people very fast, including helicopters. And they're very good at it. That's Chief Daryl Gates designed it back in the 90s to be a highly mobile strike force.
All you got to do is go protest Big Blue. You'll see how quick they show up.
Yeah, and they show up en masse, and I mean, that has a good side to it. You have this idiot. He's in the backyard, won't come out. So they have what is it? It's not the German Shepherd, it's the Belgian. Is it called
the Malinois?
Yeah, the Malinois. Yeah. So they sent in their Malinois, and it got a hold of the guy, and he's screaming. Little bitch is screaming. He suddenly wants to surrender. He's not almighty, right? So I'm watching from the perimeter line, and they handcuff the guy to the gurney, right? He's handcuffed to the gurney, and his legs they give him preliminary first aid, and they're going to transport him to UCLA hospital or USC to get examined before they put him in jail. So this guy, I'm taking photographs of him, and he's screaming at me not to photograph him. And I said, I could do whatever I want. You're an idiot. I'm putting you up on Nextdoor so everyone can see you. But that dog bite, that police dog got its teeth. I love watching.
Are amazing. They're
beautiful dogs.
Have you seen John Wick 3?
I have not. No.
Oh, they show two of them. Like one scene where one of the stunt people bends over, the dog literally comes up, uses that person as a launch pad, and goes right up the side of like a 20-foot wall.
Yeah.
Melamar are crazy. Chad, when you got bit by that police canine, how
Yep.
bad was that?
It was pretty bad. It still hurts, Bo.
Yeah, I never seen anybody get bit like that right in that area in the nether area like that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Dad took it like a man. He only screamed a little bit.
Yeah. Scientology Celebrity Center has 2 dogs.
Oh wow.
They keep them on a leash right there at the entrance. You'll see them some days. So I've seen them over at I've seen them several times. They have the attack dogs at Big Blue. That's a church that says, we're so welcoming that if you step across the property line, we'll turn our dog loose on you.
That's like the guy who was that king in The Walking Dead had the tiger sitting right by his throne.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying they have. This was in the old days. Now Celebrity Center is private property. It used to be public welcome. Now it's members only. They changed all the signage. They put up new footage and they have attack dogs. So nothing says we like people like stay off our property line. Our dog's going to get you worse than it got Chad.
Well, I mean, they show you that they truly love the public and they love everyone by their fair gaming. It's tough love. So
yeah. No, L. Ron Hubbard Way is still closed up. I just drove by it today. And
what about the planners?
I was on Sunset, so I didn't. I'll check L. Ron Hubbard Way or Fountain tomorrow. That's on the other side. But I drove by today on Sunset, and it's still some cultural events.
Did you catch the live where Mona and Audit LA actually had proof that the LA permit office was pushing people towards Scientology to get permits?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they actually, someone that they knew was trying to get a permit for an event. The city of LA, someone in that office actually told them it's going to be $5,000 a day to get the permit. But if you go to Scientology and have them pull a permit, they're only going to charge you $1,000 a day and help you put your event on.
As long as it's on L. Ron Hubbard Way.
Yeah.
Well, the tactic they're using, and this is interesting, is the church when it opened Scientology Media Productions, it was the old KCET lot.
Yeah.
And
Dad, give me a double fillet of fish while you're there.
All right, will do.
Yeah. So they said that they were going to allow other groups to use Scientology Media Productions, other religious groups to produce, content. And as Mitch Britzker said, that's never happened. Because I was waiting for Nation of Islam to use that $100 million facility to make videos about why Caucasians are evil. And I'm being very serious, but they won't let the Nation of Islam make any content there, and they're partners with them. Right. So now they're going to try to the community outreach where if you can show that they're subsidizing these events, there's nothing illegal with it,
right?
But it shows they're out recruiting. So that's good news. That's something I can work on with the local groups. Be careful you're not exploited or manipulated by the church.
Absolutely.
Because if now they're saying we'll host any event, then that's a tactic or a stratagem. And if the city officials are in on it, and because that would be a church state issue, you could arguably see. I worked with the American Civil, or not the ACLU. I worked with American Atheists, and I have a podcast up when the old chief of Hollywood division. He's a pretty boy cop, Corey Polka.
Oh yeah.
He put up the Scientology kiosk in the Hollywood station.
Oh yeah.
Now I had sold to LAPD and LAPD City County, and I know that what you can't just put something in a police station. Something unique about police stations, Poe, is every watt is counted for in the electrical load. And out here in California, every piece of furniture is accounted for in the seismic load. Safety, security. You know how meticulous police stations are. People don't realize how everything is accounted for.
Absolutely.
Every wall socket, like I said, every watt. So here, I knew they were violating Corey Polka bypass facilities. So I called the commander of facilities and I said, hey, Corey Polka is doing this at Hollywood. He's bypassing you. And the commander was pissed because he's in charge of facilities. And if that big Scientology kiosk went down in an earthquake, kill or injure someone or block egress from the facility, So I called Polka. I reported Polka on that. I worked with American Atheists. They took the lead in filing a lawsuit to get that out of LAPD. So American Atheists is a good group to go to. And this is one of those things, if city officials are involved in just giving them notice, since OSA's watching this, that I'm going to look up who these planners are and do some investigating.
Yeah, they
About-
Audit LA and Mona Fat Grammy actually got the city of LA to agree that those planners were put in illegally and that they have to be removed.
Oh, they did a great job on that.
Oh,
Yeah, I wonder about that because Scientology, many years ago when they were building the flag building, it used to be called Superpower Building, they sawed down a couple of 300-year-old oak trees.
Really?
Yeah, the city told them, no, you can't take down these trees, so they just took them down.
I'm
And
not surprised.
well,
I mean,
and then they paid the fine. So Scientology's scofflaw attitude is break the law and then worry about the consequences later. So they'll just put up the permits and it'll be like, make us take them down. And then they'll drag that along for a couple months. So that's their general scofflaw attitude, is destroy old growth oak.
Maybe they should tell them it's homeless encampments and they need to go in and clean them out. That way they'll get immediate response from the city on it.
Yeah, they would, anyway, there's some local politics going on, and with the election coming up, I know they're in the East Hollywood. You got to get down onto, but yeah, Mona and Audit did a very good job.
Oh, they're doing fantastic stuff. Yeah.
We just have to find who Scientology's gotten to direct traffic. Someone at City Hall, if they're directing groups to go to Scientology to get a discount of 80% on fee permits.
Yeah.
Scientology, here, a famous story. There was a Reg named Rafi going back to around 1980 and earlier. He's an Israeli. And he would actually go downtown LA, get homeless people, put them on the bus them in for an event, feed them lunch. And he could count his statistics as I brought in, 70 people for my Dianetics seminar.
Wow.
He would bus them in for stats, feed them lunch, and then they were on their own. They could get, from Hollywood back to downtown, back to Skid Row.
Goodness.
No, that actually happened. So there's all kinds of that kind of stuff going on. So if somebody is taking money or they're being if there's a violation of church and state here, makes me suspicious. So I don't actually have the facts, but it's worth investigating.
Right.
So if anyone wants to reach out to me, please do, because that's not right to engage in a pattern or a scheme to deprive local residents of a road that's used quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so that's an argument of
well, there's also the safety concerns which is the reason why the city came out and said that they can't have the planners, is because it violates the ADA. People who need to be able to get to a sidewalk or clear the street that are in wheelchairs or have some kind of difficulty walking, they can't get through there. And it's so they've closed down the road, which is blocking off part of it, which the ambulances and fire trucks can't get through now. And now they put up those planners that are put so close together that people in wheelchairs can't get through there. But Mama's at the door. I gotta go ahead and start tuning this down for the night. But
okay,
Chad, you got anything to say to us? You're muted.
He's muted.
Oh, it was a pleasure to be here with Jeffrey and you, Poe, and I had a lot of fun.
It's amazing to have Chad on it and not be a Sunday night. So,
I know.
Jeffrey, any closing thoughts from you, sir?
No, I gotta go. I gotta go get. I go get ready. I've got I got something to go check out. See if somebody's where they're not supposed to be.
Okay. And folks, I put a link in there. Mark Bunker is live right now. If you want to jump over and say howdy to Mark, let him know. We appreciate him. Do a raid over there and hit that like button over there. You don't have to stay for the whole live, but thank you all for jumping in and watching this impromptu. I appreciate each and every one of you.
And one word.
And go ahead.
Stay away from them snakes, unless you want God to take you home early.
Well, that's you know what
you drooling idiot.
that's my thing. So, all right, folks. So